Story 1. A Rift in Space and Time. The chamber door hissed open with a pneumatic sigh, revealing the grand expanse of the celestial observatory. Commander Alara Dane stepped inside, her boots silent on the cold metal floor. The room, a sphere of glass and steel, hung suspended in the heart of the starship Avalon, offering a 360-degree view of the swirling cosmos beyond. Alara's gaze was immediately drawn to the anomaly dominating the starboard view, a writhing tapestry of light that defied the blackness of space. The celestial rift, they had called it, a tear in the very fabric of the universe. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, casting an ethereal glow over her sharp features. "Report, Lieutenant Harrow," Alara commanded, her voice steady despite the flutter of unease in her chest. Lieutenant Harrow, a young officer with eyes too old for his face, turned from a console studded with blinking lights. "It's unlike anything we've seen, Commander. The rift is expanding and its energy readings they're off the charts." Alara approached the console, her eyes flicking over the data that scrolled across the screens in a stream of incomprehensible numbers and graphs. "Is it stable?" Harrow shook his head, a lock of dark hair falling into his eyes. "We don't know. The laws of physics seem to bend around it." The ship shuddered suddenly, a groan of metal that resonated through the chamber. Alara's hand shot out, gripping the edge of the console for balance. "Status!" A chorus of alerts answered her from the bridge through her communicator. "Commander, the rift's gravitational pull is increasing. It's affecting the ship's systems," came the anxious voice of her second-in-command. Alara's heart raced. The Avalon was the pinnacle of human engineering, a vessel designed to withstand the unknown variables of deep space. But this was something else entirely. "We need to move the ship to a safe distance," she decided, her mind racing through protocols. Before Harrow could respond, a new alarm blared. The console in front of them blinked red, and the lieutenant's face drained of color. "Commander, it's the core! The rift's influence it's triggering a cascade failure." Alara's blood ran cold. A cascade failure in the starship's core could lead to a catastrophic meltdown. Every soul aboard the Avalon depended on her next decision. "Evacuate the engineering deck. Get everyone to the escape pods," she ordered, her voice a calm force in the face of rising panic. Harrow hesitated, his hand hovering over the evacuation command. "And what about you, Commander?" Alara met his gaze, her resolve as unyielding as the titanium hull surrounding them. "I'll try to stabilize the core. Now go." Harrow saluted, a gesture of respect and fear before sprinting from the observatory. Alara turned back to the viewport, the rift's chaotic light casting shadows across her determined face. She whispered a silent prayer to the void and hurried toward the core. As she raced through the corridors, the ship bucked and groaned around her, the metal walls echoing with the distress of the Avalon. Crew members dashed by in a blur of motion, their faces etched with terror and confusion. Alara arrived at the core control room to find chaos. Panels sparked, screens flickered, and the core itself, a massive cylinder of pulsating energy, throbbed erratically. She moved to the main console, her fingers flying over the controls as she accessed the core's containment protocols. The ship lurched violently, throwing her against the console. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she pushed it aside, her focus unwavering. The core's rhythm was becoming increasingly erratic, a deadly drumbeat that threatened to end in silence. She adjusted the containment field, trying to coax the core back to stability, to slow the cascade. Warning lights continued to flash, a relentless reminder that time was running out. The ship's AI broke through the cacophony of alarms. "Warning! Core breach imminent. Commander Dane, your immediate evacuation is advised." Alara ignored the AI's counsel. She could feel the core's power surging, a wild thing straining against its bonds. "Not yet," she muttered, her hand steady despite the tremor that ran through the ship. With a final, desperate adjustment, she locked in a new containment sequence. The core's pulsing slowed, the lights steadied, and for a moment, Everything was eerily silent. Ilara held her breath, waiting, watching. Then, with the grace of a celestial ballet, the core's energy rhythms began to harmonize. The cacophony of warning subsided, replaced by the hum of stable power. She let out a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. The ship was safe for now, but the rift still loomed outside, a silent predator. She needed to get back to the bridge to pilot the Avalon out of the anomaly's grasp. The journey back to the bridge was a gauntlet. The Avalon trembled with aftershocks, the rift's influence still a tangible force. Crew members, now calm but vigilant, nodded to her as she passed, their eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and dread. Upon reaching the bridge, Ilara was met with a sight that stole the words from her lips. The rift had begun to collapse in on itself, a spiraling vortex of light and shadow pulling at the edges of reality. "Commander," her second-in-command called, "the rift is contracting, but it's causing a spatial displacement wave. It's heading straight for us." Ilara's mind raced. "Engage thrusters, full reverse, and prepare for hyperjump on my mark." The crew sprang into action, their training overtaking their fear. The Avalon's engines roared to life, the ship straining against the pull of the collapsing rift. Hyperjump in 3, 2, 1, mark! Space stretched, reality warped, and in the blink of an eye, the Avalon shot through the fabric of space-time, leaving the rift and its enigmatic dance behind. Ilara stood on the bridge, her crew around her, each face a mixture of relief and awe. They had survived an encounter with the unknown, and though the journey ahead was uncertain, they had proven their mettle against the vast, unforgiving cosmos. She looked out at the stars, their familiar twinkle a comforting promise. "Set a course for home," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of their collective hope. "Let's find out what other secrets the universe holds." The Avalon sailed forward, a lone sentinel amidst the infinite, its journey far from over. Story 2: We shall fall, but not our spirits. Kane stood resolute against the smoldering ruins of Gentra City, the once bustling metropolis now reduced to ash and echoes. He was the last line of defense between the merciless Nothral invaders and the remnants of humanity, huddled in the shadows of a world on the brink of extinction. The chitinous aliens had spilled from the darkness between the stars, a hive mind bent on consumption. Earth, rich in the resources their own stripped husk of a planet no longer provided, was their next meal. Once a soldier for hire, Kane's life had been a tapestry of wars without cause. But here, amid the ruins of Gentra, every bullet, every drop of sweat was a stanza in the anthem of humanity's survival. The memory of his daughter, a casualty to the very kind of conflict he now fought, was a haunting melody that drove him forward. Her laughter, the distant sound of a world that was, became the battle cry that steeled his resolve. The Nothrals surged through the carcass of the city, their armor impervious to all but the most lethal of weapons. Kane's railgun, a relic from a bygone era of human ingenuity, spat defiance in the form of tungsten shards that tore through the invaders with the wrath of a grieving father. But Gentra City whispered secrets to those who would listen. Beneath the surface, a network of ancient tunnels, remnants of a time when humans first dared to dream of touching the stars, provided a labyrinthine advantage. Kane and a band of survivors, including Lyra, a young engineer with a brilliant mind and a spirit unbroken by the invasion, had rigged the tunnels with traps and fallback points. These veins of hope ran deep, and in them, humanity's pulse still faintly throbbed. A plasma bolt, bright as a dying star, blazed past Kane, the heat searing his cheek. He dove into a roll, coming up with his railgun trained on the advancing horde. Each shot echoed the heartbeats of the Gentra's children, now silent. Lyra's voice crackled over the comm, a steady presence in the chaos. "Kane, fallback point Echo is compromised. We're setting charges at Foxtrot. Get back here." He couldn't, not yet. With each pull of the trigger, he bought them time. Kane's weapon clicked empty, and with fluidity born of necessity, he drew the monomolecular blade at his side, a sliver of human ingenuity against a backdrop of alien might. The first Nothril reached for him, claws designed to rend flesh and shatter bone, but found only empty air. Kane's counter was a dance of desperation, his blade severing limbs in arcs of alien blood that glowed like toxic fireflies. The Nothril were learning, adapting to his movements. They were many. He was but one. Yet, as Kane fought, a chorus of human defiance rose from the tunnels. The survivors, led by Lyra's indomitable will, unleashed the fury of the trapped. Explosives detonated in strategic symphony, and for a moment, the Nothril tide wavered. It was then that Kane saw him, a Kulnak child, his eyes wide with terror, a mirror of humanity's own. The Kulnak, a peaceful species subjugated by the Nothril, had found reluctant refuge among humans. This child's parents had died in a blast meant for the enemy, and now he was alone, a silent plea for mercy in a world that had forgotten the meaning. Kane's armor, a patchwork of scars and burns, was a testament to his journey. As a plasma bolt found its mark, piercing his defenses, he stumbled but did not fall. His voice was a gravelly command, fueled by the fire of a protector's spirit. "Run! Live!" The child hesitated, then sprinted toward the distant hum of rescue ships, their presence a flicker of hope against the oppressive, smoke-filled sky. As Kane's vision blurred, the last thing he saw was the child's safe passage into a medic's arms, a small victory, a whisper of tomorrow. The pain receded and darkness crept in, but Kane's legacy was already taking root in the stories that would be told of this day. A human shield in the storm, a beacon for the broken,